We all check in? Go ahead and check in. Thank you. Check in. Mr. Mark and Marty, go.
I'll bring the Butte-Silver Bow Council Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Wednesday, November 13th, 2019. Can we please have a roll call?
Yes, we have 11 present, 1 presiding, and 0 absent.
Commissioner McDonough, would you please lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night, as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bow. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items on the agenda. Please state your name and address for the record.
Being the only public, R. Everett Bandrob, 2601 Grand Avenue. Relative to Judiciary Communication 19466, if you passed the law and I knew, I would be sure to keep my doors locked at all times. Section 1, Communications. Section 5, Communication 19509, requesting public hearing on establishing the Harrison Avenue Tiffin. I am not an opponent to the establishment of this tax increment finance district. The Lord knows we need it. Just for you newbies, so you understand, a TIFID takes increment taxes away from the general fund, where they can be used for improvement of the general community, and designates them only for use within the designated area. It is a subtle way to promote increased income inequality. But I am strongly object to the manner in which it was developed and presented to you. I heard the staff report that all the property owners had been notified. I am not sure what was done after that. But what I did not hear in the report was whether or not the staff held public listening sessions prior to the public hearing. We all know public hearings are just a legal formality. What I did not hear was the Council of Commissioners Economic Development Committee's report on the listening sessions they held in the area to determine if the people in the area wanted a TIFID to be established. What I did not hear was the Citizens Community Council's report on what is the overwhelming consensus of the property owners and residents of the area and the general Greater Butte-Silver Bow community relative to the worthiness of the proposed plan. I didn't hear who initiated the proposal. I do not remember any communication coming before this council requesting the creation of this TIFID. It's all about attitude. Do not involve the public until the public hearing. Not until after the fact. Not until after the deal is done. This local government does not represent or respond to the people. It expects the people to respond to it. I ask, is Commissioner McDonoghue's 2016 statement correct? Ed, you have never been a commissioner. We serve on several boards and commissions, and we do not have time to be proactive. I do not know how you can represent the people when you are not allowed to directly request any government employee to do anything. When you have no independent counsel, staff, or system as a body to research anything. When you have not established an officially recognized channel for the people to communicate a consensual, common solution to any common concern.
Mr. Banderab, can you please
I've got a half a
repeat
minute.
what communication you're talking about?
I'm talking
You're still
about
on the
procedure on communication 19509.
okay.
When you do not have time to be proactive, leaders in your district, when 447 of 500 residents that I talked to signed a petition requesting the clause 3.03E of the city-county charter be implemented, and it is still not implemented, nor was there any reply or any action relative to this specific communication. That is an 89%, well above the 379 needed to have a 95% confidence level that this is probably the desire of the total population. When a group of citizens have just recently called for a different form of government, and you are actively collecting signatures to put it on the next ballot. If this is the situation, then maybe it is time you spent a little time considering how to improve the manner in which this local government functions for future TIFIDs. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment from any member of the public that would like to speak on anything on tonight's agenda? Commissioner McDonough, this isn't really the proper time, so let's wait till after. I'll give you a cup. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. This is not.
Commissioner McDonough, let's not go there. Let's not do that. We'll move on to report of the chair. I don't have anything to report on tonight. Section 1, communications. Communication 19-443. Eldon Beal, citizen requesting Council of Commissioners authorize the Chief Executive to amend and include Emma Park, BSB County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 9.16, Park restrictions, and to include penalties and or fines. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending a report back from the Sheriff's Department or Parks and Rec Department. Number 2, Communication 19-482. Ed Randall, Community Enrichment Department Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission for a presentation on October 16th, 2019, meeting to present an update on the Butte-Silver Bow Community Enrichment Department. This presentation will occur on November 20th, so we'll continue to hold this in abeyance. Number 3, Communication 19-503, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners to hold a bid opening on October 23rd, 2019, related to the wheel loader for the landfill. We did hold this, so Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to place Communication 19-503 on file.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Okay, would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea and 0 nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Number 4, Communication 19-504, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners to hold a bid opening on October 23rd, 2019, related to the excavator for the Water Utility Division. We did hold this already. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to place Communication 19-504 on file.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea and 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 5, Communication 19-509, Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners to request time on the November 6, 2019 Council agenda to hold a public hearing on the ordinance establishing the Harrison Avenue South Urban Renewal Area with a tax increment financing provision. We did have this presentation or public hearing on November 6th. Commissioner McDonough, do you have any comments on this communication?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything specific to this. It's just that in regards to comments made about my statements made in the council chambers being paraphrased, they're inaccurate. And we don't have the opportunity to speak during the public hearing, but those statements made by you, Mr. Bandrob, are incorrect. And we can talk about procedure and process for this, but I just want to set the record straight that those things that you paraphrase about my comments made earlier are not correct. I did not say those things.
Okay, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I move to place Communication 19-509 on file.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
12 yea and 0 nay.
Okay, thank you. Next is Communication 19-515, Chuck Merrifield, Chairman, Parks and Recreation Board, requesting Council of Commissioners to read the attached letter to be read and acted upon by the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners. Attached to this communication is also the 2009 Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan, along with a 2012 Master Plan Accomplishment Document. I believe Ms. Tuddy is in the audience and would like to speak. It was my understanding Mr. Merrifield wanted this voted on next week, but I will leave it up to you. So
I got the call today.
So did I.
If I can approach you guys, I have some. everybody got something. So I'm going to ask you to do what every teacher does and hand stuff out to you, and then ask you not to look at it for a minute. Chairman Morgan, thank you. Members of the Council of Commissioners, as you know, my name's Kathy Tutty. I'm the Vice Chair of the Parks and Rec Board, and I'm here today to request that you give consideration to and approve an independent study to update our master plan that was created well over 11 years ago in 2008. In 2008, Butte-Silver Parks and Rec Board requested the council to authorize an independent analysis of the Parks and Rec Department to create a master plan, and that was completed in 2009. The comprehensive plan has been a guiding document for the Parks and Rec Department for the last 11 years. If you look at the document that has the red ink on it, it'll give you an idea of what we've done consistent with the plan. A lot more has happened that was not anticipated at the time of the plan. You don't need to look any further than Stodden Park to see Ridge Waters and the Stodden Park Playground, the Victory Field and Victory Circle and Legends, Three Legends Stadium up at Copper Mountain, and the Skyline Park out behind Hillcrest School, to know that there are partnerships that we have, in addition to the playground at Rocker, which was a partnership between the county, the Rocker Women's Ladies Auxiliary Volunteer Fire Department, and the Kiwanis Club. So all of those groups have participated in forwarding the plan and ensuring that the investment that we made into our parks and rec was worth it. Master planning is a comprehensive process that provides guidance and policy direction both to the local government decision makers and to the people participating with the parks. The planning process engages stakeholders and garners public input, something that we desperately need. Provides a foundation for understanding and responding to the parks and rec needs of the community. It involves strategically examining our vision, existing services, facilities, and resources, and assessing future needs concerning parks, recreation, open space, and greenways, subject of much conversation lately. The investment that the community of Butte-Silver has made, along with those large private donations that I mentioned earlier, have created recreational parks, trails, facilities that are the envy of other communities. People travel here to use our recreational facilities. These investments into the Parks and Rec of Butte-Silver are economic drivers for our community. People come to Butte in part because of the quality of life we provide through the recreational opportunities that we have available. Tonight, what I handed you were the 5 goals that were established in the 2008 plan. The Chairman Merrifield, on behalf of the Parks and Rec Board, asked the Parks and Rec Director, J.P. Gallagher, to document these accomplishments, and all of those have happened in relationship to these goals. They're in red next to what was established in 2008. As you can see, the list is extensive, and it's evidence for you that that comprehensive master plan didn't just sit on the shelf and collect dust, as lots of notebooks that I have done. I'm sure none of you have ever done that. The investment that the council made in 2008 to study and create the plan was well worth the money. The 2019 Parks and Rec Department Board would very much appreciate your support in authorizing a study to update the plan. We're not alone in our request. The second handout that you received was a set of 4 different... I didn't touch it. 4 different letters, all in support of our request for a review and a reevaluation of our plan. They come from the Friends of Stodden, from Jocelyn Dodge, who's a past chair of the Parks and Rec Board, from the Snowflinga folks, so that's the last page that you'll see there, that their official name is the Butte Community Fitness Foundation. And by the way, they want you to be at Snowflinga in January. And the Highland Cycling Club. And as most of you probably know, the Highland Cycling Club's expanded so that we actually have a competing cycling group. Those kinds of bike trails and bike opportunities were not necessarily envisioned in that 2008 plan. And one of the things you'll note in the letter is that when Senator Tester was here a couple weeks ago, he asked about our master plan. One of the things that he asked was, what did we foresee as far as bike trails? There are grants available, but without a plan, we can't apply for the grants. So I'd ask you on behalf of the committee, the Parks and Rec Board, and also on behalf of the Parks and Rec Department and the great work that they've been doing, that you consider authorizing a study.
Okay. Thank you. I'll open it up for questions. The first question that I have might be for you, might be for JP.
Probably for JP.
Let's talk about funding. Funding sources for
That's for JP.
for a request for proposals, or is that what it was? Where's it coming from?
Well,
How are we paying for it?
Chairman Morgan, members of council, that I think that would have to come from the council authorizing and working with the net to find the funding source to be able to do this. As we've talked in the past, I mean, that had to come out in 2008 as well. This was conducted in 2008 and completed in 2009. I believe the study costs about $25,000. I believe that, in truth of how things go, and talking with Senator Tester, the money that's available that requires you having a master plan could come back tenfold to this community. I think it's an investment into the future. A lot of times we sit here and we ask for things and we don't know what the validation of that is. My department is tasked with taking care of the Parks and Recreation Department, and we pride ourselves in doing it well. The question is can we do an independent analysis of our own parks? I don't think we can. I think we have a bias that is there. I don't think we have the capacity to do an independent analysis. So what we're asking, and I think the Parks and Rec Board is asking for, is that the council find the funding to be able to do this analysis. Now, I know that everybody comes here looking for money. I know that you guys are tasked with that week in and week out. But I think evidence is already out there right now that the additions to the Parks Department, the things that are going on in the parks that are supported by the parks, have been economic drivers, and they're increasing our tax base in this town. I think it's very justifiable for the commissioners here to authorize the study to be done. And the bones of the study are already there. 2008 created the bones. It's not having to recreate a full master plan. It's to update the master plan.
So I guess I'll follow up with that. Obviously, JP, I agree that having a plan is worth it. And I was here when we did in 2009. That was one of my first years as a commissioner. So it's kind of neat to look back and see the improvements that have been done. However, I guess a more pointed question to you is, do you have $25,000 in your budget? Because that's a big number to come up with, and looking at the budget resources, and maybe it's not the proper time. I mean, other than when we're setting up the budget to earmark some funds so this goes to, but I would hate to see I'd hate to find that we just have $25,000 laying around in our general funds to do a study. So,
Commissioner Morgan, members of the council, I think if you look back in the history of what we've done in the last 5 years since I've been the Parks and Rec Director, we've turned back funds every single year. I can't say that I have $25,000 sitting out there, but I could say on average we turn back more than $25,000 every year, because we try to be as prudent as we possibly can as we go through our budget process. I took over, and one of the very first things that I was told is, you don't have an unlimited checking account. And I took that to heart. And we don't go out and make promises or do things that are beyond our budgetary capacity. But, and I think that Danette or Karen could speak to that we have turned back money every single year. And it isn't because we don't want to spend it. We know that you have the unexpected things that come up, and you need to keep resources there to have available to get through the year, to make sure that we're maintaining the parks and doing the things that we have to do. And so is there money there? I don't know if I can earmark $25,000, but if I have to scrape and do what we have to do, I think this is an important enough issue that we can do that.
Ms. Teddy, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, the other thing that I would encourage the commission, thank you, Chairman Morgan, councils. The other thing I'd encourage you to consider is that look at the investment that we have from the community and from private investors. The Washington Foundation has invested over $10 million now in Stodden Park and the improvements to it. We're asking for $25,000 to do a master plan. Might be $30,000. But that amount of money against the kind of donations that we're getting, and the Washington Foundation's not the only one. There are lots of other groups that have contributed money. Most of you know that the improvements and the water park features at Ridgewaters were all donations. So if our community is willing to make those kinds of donations, I think our community is also interested in what do we need to do next so that we keep up with the improvements that are necessary and that we need. And I think that what the Parks and Rec has done with the budget that they have is pretty phenomenal if you look at those accomplishments. And I would hate to see us miss some opportunities because we try to do that study ourselves, or we try to get somebody, to be objective in town and figure it out for us. I think a qualified person or qualified group to do that kind of a study is going to be important, and I think that we've demonstrated both the discipline to use the money well as the commitment to doing everything for the best interest of the community.
Commissioner Mankins.
So seeing that you guys, there's 3 or 4 of you guys that were here in 2008, 2009, who did that master plan then? Did we hire someone out then?
It was another consultant that did it. I don't recall who it was or what the actual final cost is. The one thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows is I'm not disputing the fact that we need a master plan. What I'm questioning is just the funding of it and the timing of it. And I would be curious if you guys talk to the chief executive of any funding resources. Usually when we get things like this, they come to this body with, hey, we want to do a study, and here's how we're paying it, rather than, Commissioner, good luck to you, Morgan, find the money. JP.
Can I speak? Yeah, Chairman Morgan and Commissioners, I think that what we're asking for can be put out till the next budget year. I think that we're trying to plan for the future of where we're going. And I just went back and I was talking to Danette, and I do not want to put her on the spot saying, hey, go find us money or whatever. What I'm saying is there's a need out there. And also sitting there and talking and sitting in with Senator Tester saying, what's your master plan? What do you guys have? When you guys are applying for these grants, we have money federally that's available for you. How do we apply for that? I think this is, I don't want to put the commission on the spot saying, come up with the money now and let's get this done now. But it's putting it into the minds that the master plan needs to be updated. The Parks and Trails system, if you look at the accomplishments that have gone on there, and I'm not taking credit for the accomplishments that's on there because there was many of them that were done before I ever became the Parks and Rec director. Many of them were started way before I became the Parks and Rec director. But the inventory of parks, the things that we've taken on since the 2008 master plan is pretty enormous. It's into the $30 million range. And I think it's imperative that we look forward and update the master plan.
Sure. I apologize, Commissioner Mankins. Did you have a follow-up on that?
No, just going to kind of piggyback off of you, Chairman Morgan, on the fact when you look at this from 2008 and we spent whatever the amount of money was, somewhere at that range, less, more, I guess it really doesn't matter of what the accomplishments have been since 2008 to 2019. If we all sat on here and thought back like, oh, we won't approve that, or we don't think this is a great idea, I think this is, trying to be prepared for the future. And I think it's nice to see someone trying to figure out a way to set us forward for the next 10 years, 11 years.
Commissioner Sorich. He was next. You too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're all in agreement that, there's probably a master plan, but I think there's a procedure that has to be followed. And I think that's what we need to find out exactly what the procedure is so we can get this on for next year's budget.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, JP, and thank you, Tutty, for bringing this to our attention. I do have one question. I was looking through your budget allocations and what you have to spend. You have your 350 line item for professional services, 10,000, which I highly believe this would qualify and be a part of. Is there a way that this payment can be split into two different budget cycles, 2 different years? How long would this plan take, and how could we go about that to ease the taxpayer burden on this and get this done in the timeliest fashion as possible?
Mr. Gallagher. Oh, one more time. There you go.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Anderson, I believe if we put this out that it would need to fall within a fiscal year, or that we would have to put it within the budget that it is allocated for. But we can look how we can allocate and do the best we can to update this plan. There's no doubt that we are looking to do anything possible to do that. Again, as I'm saying, working with the Parks and Rec Board, I think this is an important plan. Does it have to happen this week? Do we have to put out an RFP this week? I don't think that's what anybody was looking for. I think it's more getting into the minds that a plan needs to be updated. I think we need to reassess what was done in 2008. And as I said before, the 2008 plan was extensive and well done. If you look at it and look at the vision that they had and where we're at now, there's a lot of really great accomplishments that went through there. And in truth, I'm going to be honest with this, I was in my 3rd year before I ever realized that there was a comprehensive plan out there. And looking at it, there was a lot of things that were already accomplished, and we were working towards those other things. When you talk about, although the pool, it says it didn't really need a pool, but if we did, we would do a water park that it had many play features, not having a regular pool. If you read through that whole thing, it is exactly what Ridge Waters ended up being. It also, if you look at just the different things that were put in there through the plan, there's a lot of milestones that were hit within that plan that were visionary within that 2008 plan.
So a proper way to probably fund this would just for you to add a line item to the next budget process.
Right.
Goes through the chief executive, and then it gets picked out through that. Because right now, I don't know if a motion to proceed, what that would do here, because there's still no funding right now unless we find one through another fund. But it seems more appropriate for you to enter it into your budget.
Commissioner Morgan and Commissioner, so let me ask you, so with this, should we come back to you at that time to request for an RFP into the next budget cycle? That was kind of where we were, I was unsure of where we looked at. If you remember last year, I did come forward and talk to you about the master plan and the accomplishments that went on before, and so I wasn't quite sure what the process was. So we went back to the Parks and Recreation Board, and we talked about things and what would be the proper procedure of doing that. And it was, with their recommendation to request the RFP. So with that, with them already have had that motion within the Parks and Rec Board, would I bring that forward to the next budget year? Is that what I would?
That's what I would think. I would. If you have budgetary authority for it, you don't need the blessing from the council at that point. County Attorney Joyce or Ms. Gleason, I don't know if you have any comment on that, but that's my understanding. County Attorney Joyce, is that correct? Ms. Gleason.
If their services, Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, if their services over $25,000, it has to go out for an RFQ at least.
But it has to be added to the budget line items.
Yes.
So once they have that secured in the budget,
Then they can go out for an RFQ.
but they don't need the council blessing to be able to
Right.
do that. So
Right.
that's
If it's
not
in the
needed.
budget.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's in the budget. Okay. Commissioner Fisher, then Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I think we're jumping ahead of the gun here a little bit. The communication don't ask for no $25,000 or $30,000. The communication doesn't mention that in there. I guess one of my questions is how did we get the estimate that it's going to cost $25,000 or $30,000 for a study? We don't know that yet. Right. That's just a guess. Right. It could be 15, it could be 50. So in my mind, we don't know that that is going to even come into play, and that's a different thing for budget. And when you're looking for money, you can look at the budget, as you know, or, that's a possibility with trails being in there. We could hit CESO and ARCO up for some money maybe in that procedure a little bit. But the thing about this communication asks to be read and acted upon. And if you're going to read and act upon something tonight that doesn't even mention money, whether it be 25, 15, 10, whatever, I think we're kind of talking out of school here for a little while because we don't have the authority to give you money right now, and you don't have the authority to ask us for money right now. So I think if we're just going to hold this communication, or why would you want us to act upon this just to read the letter, or is it act upon to get the funding? I guess I'm a little confused. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher, yeah.
Commissioner Morgan, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Fisher, I think you're correct on what you're seeing there. I think we probably did jump the gun. I think that not knowing the exact procedure that we should have followed on here, that's my mistake and the chairman's mistake on where we need to go. The Parks and Recreation Board did take action on it to take it to you guys to ask for an RFP or an RFQ to do a study. You're correct. I don't know if we know what that would be because of the study that was done in the past. I anticipate that it may, because it's 11 years later, it may cost about as much, but it shouldn't be as extensive as the last study had to be, because there are a lot of the things in place from that study.
Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. So as you said, the bones of it are here. So I guess would we be out of line just holding this in abeyance until we got more information, maybe even read a little more of these 6-7 pages we got here? And I read your letter a couple of weeks ago when it was on the agenda. But we as commissioners, I would just feel a little better if this was, a little better put together. I'm all for doing whatever you got to do, but I'd like to have a little firmer number and know where the money's coming from, and have Danette and the chief executive involved, as Chairman Morgan said. I think we're all on the same page, but I think right now we're just kind of shooting blanks right now. So thank you.
Logistically, it would make more sense to note this communication, and then when you come up with a funding source and the cost proposal. Okay. Again, if you can find it in the budget, you don't need to come before this body to authorize it. So does that help?
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Fisher, Commissioners, it does help. I didn't know if we had the ability to go out and get a cost analysis ahead of time without having a request for that. I guess that I could talk to some of the people that do park analysis and things like that to see if they would have at least a ballpark figure that they could give to us on that. Again, I apologize if this came forward to you guys without going through the proper procedure. I think that the Parks Board Chairman, Merrifield, he wrote the communication. We talked about this. We talked about it last year going forward, and we thought that probably the best scenario would be, because I presented to and talked about it last year, that it would be a request from the Parks Board, and that's why that communication came forward. I understand the funding at this time of year. I think it was more to get it in the minds of that we want to have a request for a proposal or request for quote on RFQ or RFP to do the master plan. So we will go forward with that, looking to the next year with in mind that this is what the Parks Board is looking at. I think it really is an imperative place for us to go forward as we look to the future with parks.
Yep, I agree. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. JP, I guess also what I'd recommend, I know every year the Finance and Budget Committee, they have conversations with each department head. They have in the past. That would probably also be a real good place to maybe do some, to do some lobbying for your cause, which I think everybody is probably in favor of it. But that would be a good time at that point, probably maybe next May, June, possibly, whenever it's set up. But I think that's a good time a good place to be able to bring this up also. Saying that, I'd make a motion that we note and place this communication on file.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to note and place on file. On the question, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, JP and Kathy. We really appreciate, and your board is they are very proactive. I really appreciate that. But I'm just reading the letter from Chuck. It does say that they're asking to have the council authorize an independent study, which obviously we cannot do.
Right.
But it's not that far from budget time, honestly. When you think about it, we're getting, once we turn the new year, it's like, wow, you need to get started on it. And also, I want to thank you for the copy of this accomplishment report. This is from 2012. I was here in 2007. That's when I started, and I was definitely involved in the original plan. There were some things in there I didn't agree with. They wanted to get rid of my little tot lots, and I actually went out and had petitions signed by children, but thankfully that didn't happen. And so there are some things, but it was an independent study from an outside looking in, kind of. And I would hope that when you do have a study that you have plenty of people, and I'm sure you will, from the community, because we know what we want better than anybody. But it is nice to get fresh eyes on a lot of those things. So anyway, I just thank you for that too.
Okay, there is a motion to note and place on file. Is there anything else on the question? Okay. Would everyone please vote? Okay. Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
We have 11 yea and 1 nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Next item is number 7, Communication 19-528. Dylan Pipinich, Assistant Planning Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorize the Chief Executive for permission to schedule a public hearing on November 26, 2019 to hear public comment on a zone change application number 179. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the public hearing on the 26th. Next item is any public comment on any public matter that's not on tonight's agenda. Any member of the public would like to speak? Now is your opportunity. Okay, moving on. Commissioner Shaw.
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All right, motion made and seconded. Is there anything on the question? Judiciary Committee is reconvening. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.